Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of Design Recharge. This is episode 245, and I'm super excited to have my friend Jordan Wong on with me today. Jordan and I don't know how long we've known each other. Maybe
Probably
3 years?
probably 3 years. Actually, because I met you at Creative South, I think 2 years ago. So yeah, maybe going on three.
Yeah, going on 3. This will be our third Creative South together.
Yes.
Because the first one you weren't exhibiting, right? You didn't have a
The
table
first one
that year?
that was 2016, and that was my first one. And actually, yeah, I was.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Then last year you didn't?
Last year I wasn't able to make it. Actually.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
Anyway, so all right. So let me just tell you. So Jordan and I, we met. He great illustrator, great designer, and then we met at Creative South. He was doing his own kind of thing. I'm kind of painting the picture because I'm going to ask you a little bit about like your process. But
Sure.
one of the things that I just fell in love with was he was so open with what kind of happened, where he was just doing, we think, okay, I've got this thing, I'm doing this, my stuff, I'm trying to sell my wares, and then, it's just hard. It's hard to get traction unless you just have a bazillion followers, right? So you really kind of adjusted or pivoted, and that's why we're calling this episode Pivot. And you are so good at pivoting. And I think you're going to give people a lot of great ideas about how they can pivot their stuff on a regular basis, because I think you're so good at it. So you've been on before. You were on in the Emerge episode with the AIGA Emerge. And so give us a little bit of your background. You have a interesting creative journey, and you are from Pittsburgh, but you now live in Cleveland.
Yep.
And Doc says he can't wait to learn to pivot better. You're going to learn something. And Jordan wears special magic socks. Maybe not today, but he does.
Actually, today.
Can you show us? Can you lift up your leg and show us can you see my foot? I'm pretty short. This table is really tall.
I'm afraid if I do that, I'm going to like knock something over.
Okay. Well, you can take a picture and then tag us in Instagram or something. Or send it to me and I'll post it. Okay. So you got your magic socks on.
Yes.
Okay, so tell us about the whole creative journey, kind of from school on.
Sure, absolutely. So I graduated from this small little university in Pennsylvania. It's about an hour southeast of Pittsburgh, and it's California University of Pennsylvania. I kid you not. So I studied graphic design there, and I also got my degree in marketing. So in 2013, when I graduated, I was actually feeling pretty good about, life after college, hopefully getting a job. I was feeling good about my portfolio and my skill sets. And at that time, I had already been in AIGA Pittsburgh for about a year and a half. So I was starting to get to know people in the industry and in the community. But I actually could not find a job for 2 years. So in the meantime, while I was sending out applications and doing interviews, I realized that, okay, if I can't find a job, I need to do something. I need to create one. So this led to a lot of my own client projects, a lot of art markets, art shows. I was a sign painter for this grocery store chain, Giant Eagle Market District. I don't know if you guys have Giant Eagles.
We have Piggly Wiggly.
Piggly Wiggly.
It's a really cute logo.
Yeah, that's
we have
fantastic.
Winn-Dixie, things like that.
Right. I also taught digital illustration at this local arts organization, and I also worked at the Andy Warhol Museum as a gallery attendant. So I pretty much just did anything I could to make sure that I was continuing to create and be active in the community and in the scene, essentially. And then in 2015, I actually got hired by Go Media here in Cleveland. I was really, really excited. And I knew that this was kind of like the start of everything. especially with moving to a new city.
And it wasn't like you were just sending out applications just in Pittsburgh, right? Or were you? Were you focused in Pittsburgh before?
I think I was kind of more focused in Pittsburgh, but I also was sending out applications to like Columbus, Cleveland. So I was open to relocating, but I definitely, in my head, wanted to stay in Pittsburgh,
Right.
especially since, that's where I grew up. That's where my friends and family are. So when I
It's
got
funny.
hired,
I
oh,
did
go
not
ahead.
want to be anywhere near Atlanta. No offense to anybody who lives in Atlanta. It was like I grew up there. I do not want to be there. So just funny. Okay, clearly the traffic is not as bad in Pittsburgh.
No, it's not too bad. It's not bad at all, actually, compared
Okay.
to a lot of other cities. But
So
yeah.
you get the job and you move to Cleveland and you move alone. Did you know anybody?
I had one friend actually in Cleveland because he went to school at Case Western Reserve, and he and I go back to high school actually. So we would see each other over the holidays every now and then. But when I told him that I was moving to Cleveland, he was absolutely wonderful. He showed me around. He introduced me to some of his friends, and he really made the transition and the move a lot easier than it would have been doing it by myself. Um, but
But you're not super shy
no, definitely not.
and
Actually,
you make friends easy. You're super nice.
so within the first week of moving to Cleveland, I was like, you know what, I'm going to hit the ground running. I'm going to check out like all the art galleries. I'm going to, become part of AIGA Cleveland and see if there's any opportunities there for me. And man, that first week in Cleveland actually leads to a lot of other relationships and opportunities that I've had down the road. So I'll talk about that later. So make sure I don't forget about that
Okay,
too.
well, I'm writing it
Yeah.
down.
Yeah. Um,
All right, so then you
so
work at Go Media, and then you end up and you're doing work, but and that's where WMC Fest that's kind of spawns out of Go Media, right?
mhm.
So then when did you transition to kind of going out on your own?
So about 8 months after I was working with Go Media, they unfortunately had to let me go, and so here I am in this new city, not really even a year in, and I have to make another decision of like, okay, what am I going to do now? Am I going to move
Mhm.
back to Pittsburgh? Am I going to try and stay in Cleveland? Do I want to work for another design firm? Should I send out applications, or should I start working for myself? And it was it was about like a week, a week of just talking to a lot of friends and professionals that I trust. A lot of just sitting there looking at the wall and thinking, what am I going to do? And I decided to actually start working on my own business, because what I realized was that from the experience of working at Go Media and also doing WMC Fest, I don't know if many people realize this, but not only did I design the poster and a lot of the promotional material, I was managing like orders between printers and making sure like a lot of things were set up, helping with Heather Sakai on this event. And I realized that I was pretty good at making relationships. That's when I first met Dustin Lee. You guys all know him, Retro Supply, and that led to projects. So that experience from WMC Fest and just meeting everyone in the industry and really forming connections and having those connections turn into long-lasting relationships, I decided that, maybe I should start working for myself, because I realized that I prefer to work with people as opposed to for them.
Hmm.
So, and there was some other factors with me starting my own business and working independently. At that time I was 25, so I was like, maybe this is the time to do it. not married. I don't have a mortgage. I don't have kids or anything like that. And not to say that, people in those situations can't start working for themselves.
Life is over for those people.
It was just one of those things that's like, you don't have any of these responsibilities. You only really have to do is just feed yourself and make sure that you don't end up homeless, which is also a pretty daunting thing, I suppose, as well. But at least I knew that if I failed, that it wouldn't affect someone else at that time. And again, I just want to repeat saying that, like, even if you are in those situations, that doesn't mean that you shouldn't, consider working for yourself if you are really passionate about it, and really kind of just feel that it's right in your gut. That was the biggest thing, is that I felt it was really right in my gut. Like, this is the time.
But you also didn't fail. You also just you did whatever it took so that, and I think, so it's just the pressure. It's just the personal pressure that you put on yourself is a little bit more if you have other mouths to feed, right?
Absolutely. And it's actually kind of interesting because I think it can go, really either direction, because, and I'm thinking about Dustin and how he started Retro Supply. Really, he used the thoughts of his family and, his newborn that was on the way to fuel his work ethic, to fuel his, kind of strategic mindset on, okay, how am I going to make this work?
Right.
Versus me, like, I guess I didn't have as much pressure as that, but, there was still pressure.
But you gave yourself your own pressure. I mean, you didn't want to go work at McDonald's. You made it work. I guess it's a mindset game, right? No matter where you are in life, you just were going to make it work. And it makes you feel a little bit easier that you were 25 and you didn't have these other mouths and a mortgage and all these other commitments. Yes. But definitely people can do it with those commitments. So, all right. So you go out and you are kind of doing your own thing, selling your own things. And then when do you so I don't know when that was, that you made the shift kind of to you were still doing a lot of illustration, but then you start kind of partnering up with some places, and you also really start, you talked to me about it at WMC Fest this year, and it was like you just lit up, and it was like you had this kind of epiphany of that you were really going to start listening, and not that you weren't listening before, but you just heard things in a different way that clients needed. Do you remember talking to me about this?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, absolutely. Yeah. Before I kind of get to that point, because that didn't happen until like maybe, I want to say halfway through 2017 that I started making that shift. But to kind of give like the full story of how did I end up working on my own? How did I end up finding clients and whatnot? I have to go back to really like within that first week of like, okay, you are now starting your own business. You are now starting to work for yourself. Luckily, and she helped me make the decision to start working for myself. It's my friend Deanna. She lives here in Cleveland. She is an incredible creative, and I use the word creative because she does so many different things. One of the biggest things that she's known for here in Cleveland is the Cleveland street glass, which she takes glass from car break-ins and turns it into jewelry. She's very, very talented at it. It's a fantastic concept, and she's doing really, really well. But she was actually working for another company at that time as a contractor. So she had work lined up for me right whenever, I was about to start on my own. So it wasn't like I really hit the ground running with like, okay, I like have no clients. There was at least that kind of cushion, or that transition for me. And I actually met her at WMC Fest. Yeah.
Another great conference for people. It's in August.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'll be here, you know, attending. I feel like I have to go because it's in my backyard. I actually really enjoy it. It's a lot of fun.
It is.
Um, so, and I'll just kind of give like a not disclaimer, but like a heads up. You'll see, you know, throughout my story that relationships are absolutely huge, and
Mm.
all of my opportunities kind of string together from who I've met and who they know and whatnot. Um, but so I had a little bit of work to start, and I quickly realized that, oh my God, I like need a separate space to go to work. Cafes are great. I still work out of cafes, but to actually have like another space that isn't your apartment that you can go in and it's
Mm.
yours is really, really helpful whenever you are your own boss, because it is too easy to take a nap, to watch Netflix, to, you know, have a snack, you know, whenever you're working out of your apartment. And the people that do work out of like a separate studio, you know, in their home or even out of their apartment, man, kudos to them, because it seriously takes an incredible amount of discipline to make sure that, you know, you're keeping on track with all of your work, and, you know, making sure that you're in front of the drawing table or in front of the computer. I couldn't do it. I seriously was really struggling when it came to being disciplined and having enough hours for the work. I
Right.
was taking way too many naps. So this kind of led to the opportunity of getting my first studio. So at that time, there was a venue. It was called Canopy,
Hmm.
and it was kind of like this multi-purpose space. In the front, it was like a store that featured artworks from local artists as well as artists that were all the way on the West Coast. A really, really great selection. We're talking screen prints, original paintings, you know, digital prints, jewelry, uh, vintage furniture, vintage clothing. And, you know, I know that's like a lot of different things, but the woman who owned the business, her name was Erica, or her name is Erica. She's still around. um, she just had a fantastic eye. And actually, it was in the back where they have their gallery, as well as like a big kind of open space to do all sorts of different events like poetry or, you know, little small theater productions. That's where I first started tango. So, man, it, again, all these stories kind of fluctuate as far as the timeline.
Sure.
Um, so my two friends who moved from New York City, actually at the same time that I moved to Cleveland, um, started teaching tango out of Canopy. So after going there for a while for tango class, I then started talking to Erica and, you know, gave her one of my cards. She looked at my work, and then that turned into the opportunity of me just showcasing some like prints in the storefront. From that, we then started discussing the studio spaces in the back. And at that point, I still wasn't comfortable with paying, you know, money for a studio just because I didn't have any clients per se. I only had the work that Deanna had ready for me. So I wasn't really ready for
Another expense.
another expense, right?
Right.
But after talking with Erica, we decided to enter in an arrangement. So instead of,
The way you say it
I
is
know,
like a sketchy arrangement, like an arranged marriage or something. But it's about
an agreement.
partnering. It's doing
Yes,
kind of these non-traditional, which is one of the things I think you're known for, right?
right, yeah. So instead of paying, you know, a monthly rental fee, I would then instead exchange design services for the space. So I did a lot of canopies, posters for their artists that came on through. And that's actually how I paid for my studio space, which was fantastic because, again, at this point, I really needed it because I wasn't getting anything done in my
And also,
apartment.
you were making relationships with these people who are coming through the space. So now you're solving their issue by having being their designer, but then you're also making more and more and more relationships, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Aside from the work that I was doing with Deanna, Erica actually introduced me to my very first client. And his name is Chris. Oh my God, I'm blanking.
That's okay.
On
Chris
his
is
last
good. That's okay.
name. I feel so terrible. He's probably gonna watch this. But
You're just saving it so that not everybody calls him. So it's
yeah,
just Chris,
that's true.
right?
Yeah. So Chris is a lawyer, but on the weekends he does this phenomenal.
It's just funny. Like, you're okay. You have this arrangement with Erica, and now Chris is a lawyer, but on the weekends, he's a.
He's a DJ. He does this radio show that plays kind of like these eclectic jazz pieces, these hidden gems. And he wanted to kind of promote his show a little bit more, and that became kind of like, I guess, my official first branding project here in Cleveland.
It's funny because these people are so much like you because they have this like eclectic, all these side things. Because you dance tango, but then you also do a lot of stuff with museums. I mean, you kind of have this really rich, and it's like you're a magnet for these people.
I get the question of, like, who do you end up doing work for? Like, is it small business? Is it corporate clients? And I ended up telling them that, the people that I end up doing work for are those who are passionate about what they do and that are kind of offering services to these niche markets.
It's a great way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, so we got to speed it up a little bit. So
Yes.
you've pivoted. You're now doing this. So so you have the space. When did you get to the place where me and you talked about it in August? When were you kind of like, the epiphany happened when you were helping clients in a different way?
That epiphany, I think, happened, like I said, probably maybe mid 2017. And, or you know what? No, it was at the start of 2017.
Okay.
Because I wasn't happy with the projects that I was getting. Well, I shouldn't say that. Basically, I wasn't happy with the amount that I was charging.
Okay.
I was looking at my expenses, and I was looking at like how much I was charging for my projects and, the frequency of that. And I was like, what, something's got to change. And I think it's important to kind of consciously say that, to really take a minute, look at where you're at, and say, like, okay, am I happy with this? Am I not happy? What can I improve? Blah, blah, blah. Is there something that I need to learn? And that at that moment, I was like, I need to do things better. I need to definitely do things better.
Right.
So I was like, well, what's one of the ways that I can kind of change things? Well, I can learn, I can figure out and have conversations with others that have been in this profession for a while and kind of pick their brains. So that led to a lot of conversations with like OK Pants, Aaron Seacrest here in Cleveland. Awesome. I asked Jason for some introductions to illustrators that he knows, and got some insight about, different paths you can take when it comes to illustration. And the last thing was I started watching a lot of videos and lectures, and the one notable channel is The Future, run by Chris Do, right?
Right. He'll be on the show in May.
That's
He's my
fantastic.
new friend.
He is extremely insightful.
Amen.
And I mean, to kind of illustrate how actionable his advice is, I literally applied like tips that or perspectives that he had in one video in a client meeting. And that was the first time I actually started charging, like in the thousands range for
Yeah.
illustration. Before I never did that. Before I didn't even.
Because why? Why? Because I think this is really hits home with a lot of people. And was it confidence, or was it that you just needed permission because that's what you needed to know what other people were charging so that you could also, what was it? Why weren't you charging enough?
I think confidence definitely plays a role in it, but I think more so is that I at that point like logically couldn't explain why
Mm.
it was justifiable to charge in that range. And there was a video the he had it was like floating around Facebook. I still think it might be floating around, but essentially it's a recording of him like doing this like lecture, and he's talking about charging for logo design,
I've
right?
seen it. I'll link it up in the show notes.
That video seriously like changed my whole practice and changed the way that I thought of pricing and changed how I started talking with my clients. And it was because of that video, which led to me watching a bunch of other videos, that it gave me a logical approach to
Mm-hmm.
charging what I charge now and what I can, charge in the future. For those who haven't seen his video or haven't seen that video, he's really a big advocate of value-based pricing.
Mm-hmm.
And that seriously changed everything for me, as well as his advice on just how you talk to clients and really he uses the concept pivoting actually as well when it comes to like pushback and when it comes to negotiating like quotes and things like that. So he's really phenomenal. I
He
really,
is.
really recommend.
So, are, so you actually start, and there's like a 3-part series. I think this is it, but I'm going to link it up so that it'll be in the show notes as well. Anyway, so you do this. You start making these changes. You start you're able to charge more, and then talk a little bit about these relationships. And you're going outside of the design industry by having the deal with Erica, right? It's still in the creative industry, but then how did you start dancing tango?
How did I start dancing tango? Okay. So, like I said, when I moved to Cleveland, within that first week, I wanted to check out all of the art galleries, art organizations, hit up AIGA Cleveland, and really just see what the scene was like. And I first met my friends who teach me. Their names are Alberto and Michaela of the Cleveland Tango School. I actually did their logo, I think, which you posted in one of the promos. So I met Michaela at an art event that was hosted by the art organization that I'm actually now partnered with and have my studio at. So they do this event every year. It's called the Monster Drawing Rally. Monster indicative of the size of it, not necessarily of the subjects, that people are drawing. And it's a fundraiser for their event where they invite like 100 plus artists to come and create a drawing or a piece of artwork within an hour. So think of like Ink Wars, but instead of giant pieces, they're working on a smaller scale, but there's way more artists, right? So Ink Wars usually has what, like 8, or is it? It's
I
like
don't know, but it
around,
has a good number between 8 and 12 or 8 and 15 kind of people. So that was maybe a little bit more people at this event.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about 100 plus, artists. So their venue is just packed with all these tables and all of these artists working in real time, and people are just walking around and seeing their process. So once the artist finishes a piece, it goes up for auction, and then the money then goes back to spaces, and they're a nonprofit, so it kind of makes sense that they would have these kind of fundraisers. But
Do you
it's a
want to show your logo that you did for them? Do you want to pull that up? It was in one of your images.
are you
Or
talking about?
the Tango logo?
Sure, absolutely.
Just so people can see. And if you're watching it on YouTube or you're listening on iTunes, you can check out the link, and it'll be in the show in the description, so you can go and look at all these. Awesome.
Yep. And actually, I'm gonna have my my screen shared, because I'm gonna,
Go through some of those.
well, because this correlates to like the Monster Drawing Rally.
Okay.
So this is the postcard illustration I did for this year's event. So again, it's kind of like this weird full circle thing that when I first moved to Cleveland, I attended the event as one of the artists, and now 3 years later, being their design partner, I get to create the promotion, for the event.
That's awesome.
So going back to the story of how I started dancing, I met Michaela at that event. We exchanged business cards, and then about a month later, she asked if I would help them out with gender balance, and offered a free month of tango.
And he's really tall, people. So, if you are. I don't know how tall you are. How tall?
6 foot, so not that tall, but
tall to me. 12 inches more than me, I guess. Or just about. So, okay. So you were helping them out because they had more women than men, right? I guess.
Yes. Yes.
So then you just get to learn. Did you have to pay, or was this part of like this deal arrangement? I'm going to use with air quotes.
So when I first started, that first month was free, just because I was helping them out with gender balance, and then afterwards I was paying for classes for about like maybe 2 or 3 months, and then we were sitting down one day having coffee, and then came up the conversation of exchanging, logo design and branding and identity work for them in exchange for attending their classes for free, as well as like all of their events. So from that point on, and I still do some work for them, like, little promotions every now and then, as well as this big event that they do every year.
So when you're doing these trades, do you have more creative freedom, or are they still really coming in? Because sometimes when you're doing a trade, it feels like you, I think people, maybe clients, don't really realize that, hey, I'm doing this as a trade, or when you're doing something pro bono. I didn't do this in the beginning, but I do this now. I'm like, hey, if I'm doing this pro bono, I kind of have creative freedom. Like, I don't want anything to be misspelled, and I want the right information on there, but I definitely kind of am going to have a vision. So when you're doing it as a trade, is there something sort of just like regular, or do you feel like you have a little bit more creative freedom in these kind of relationships?
I think when it comes to doing an exchange, so yeah, like trading design services for whatever service they're providing, it really is like a client project, where you're getting compensated monetarily, because really you're providing them value and they're providing you value. Mm-hmm. So, you can't really skimp out on.
Right. But sometimes it's like your branding might be, let's just say $1,500. Okay. Mm-hmm. And that would be how many, like that's 3 years worth of, or 4 months, or I don't know how much tango lessons are. But do you know what I mean? Like then you're just always in the black with them, and then you're just, are you ever going to get caught up? It's because I do some trades with some clients as well, but then we do part money, part trade, because I would never get paid, like I would always be in the black
Right.
if I didn't get something in money. Do you know what I
Right,
mean?
right. And yeah, no, absolutely. I think that there's, when it comes to compensation, there are things that lie outside of just money, right?
Mm.
For example, promotion. Promotion is huge.
Mm.
So maybe if you're working with a client and the value of their services don't necessarily quite meet the value of services you're providing,
Mm-hmm.
maybe a way to close that gap is to say like, okay, I'll take on the project, but I'm gonna put my logo on all the designs. I want to be listed as a design partner. And then you can get into some negotiations like any VIP events that you do, I get free admission to, and things like that. So really, thinking creatively of like, okay, how can this be worth my time?
Right.
And promotion is always huge. Marketing is always huge.
Right.
And, having access to, another audience is always beneficial. So that's kind of a way that you can negotiate or close that gap when it comes to money.
So then at the tango, right? So now they're your friends, right? A lot of times clients become your friends.
Yeah.
So, but then you're also in this group with a lot of other people who are also tangoing, and then you're doing the promotion. So they're seeing your work when they might not always run in the same circles. They might not go to the museum or other design things, right? So now you have access to other people who might need your services. I don't know how you met the lawyer dude.
Yeah, the way that I met Chris was through Erica, actually.
Okay. Erica's a good connector then.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, but it kind of, one thing I love is that you just kind of stepped outside. You didn't stop doing things. You made arrangements, in air quotes again, with people, and then but it wasn't people that were all part of the same group that you were already a part of. It allowed you to expand your friend base, right? And connections. And now you had these people that you might not have ever met had you not been in tango class with them. So in that class, how many are in the people that you've come in contact through your teachers? How many other kind of clients have you pulled out? Have you gotten as a result of some of these non-traditional ways? And one, you're new to a city, you had to kind of go out and do things. So do you know how many clients you've gotten as a result of these people, maybe?
I would say from being in tango, I've gotten like 3 major clients. So my friends who teach here in Cleveland, I consider, them my first client.
Right.
And then by doing work with them, and having a relationship with them, they provided me an introduction to another event organizer who actually he hosts an annual marathon. It's called the Cleveland Tango Bowling Marathon.
Oh, show him that poster.
Yeah,
I love that poster. When you made that poster and posted it, I was like, oh my goodness, it has such good retro. It's just so beautiful. There you go.
Yeah, the Cleveland Tango Bowling Marathon. So for those that attended WMC Fest 8, so the one last year,
mm-hmm.
It's in that venue, Mahal's, which is like this vintage bowling alley. So we have a marathon at this venue every year, and it's a blast. It's a blast. Where the dancing takes place is in that big open room where they had the talks at WMC Fest 8. And yeah, just a small little plug. All the textures in this poster were created using Retro Supply.
Woohoo! Go
promotion.
Dustin.
Yeah. So Dustin, he does a fantastic job when it comes to providing those types of products.
Cool. And it's retrosupply.com or retrosupply.co. They both get you there. All right. So from this, because we have like about 15 minutes left, and I want to make sure that we get through some things. So one of the other things that you and I have talked about is seeking validation. And sometimes, and especially with me doing illustration, where I'm becoming an illustrator and I'm not anyway. So it's about seeking validation and being okay with just seeking it from me if I liked it, than always having to seek validation outside. And you and I talked about sometimes people who work, they're the only design person or the only person on the marketing team of their corporation or the company that they work for, or there's just a lot of times we hear that kind of they talk bad about their they think less of themselves because they work in-house, and there's absolutely nothing to think less of. They're doing a huge amount of work usually, right?
Yeah.
Go into that a little bit, what you and I were talking about.
Yeah, sure. So, because this really correlates to what I was thinking when I first graduated. It was really preached to us like, all right, when you graduate, you need to find a job with a design firm or maybe in-house. But it really focused on this idea of, working for an agency and learning as much as you can from an agency, which that's definitely a great idea for sure. I'm not knocking that approach at all, but I don't think that's the only approach.
Right.
And you can see, at least from what I remember being a student, there's kind of like an obsession with that idea of like, oh, who am I going to work for? As opposed to like, what is the work that I'm going to do? Right. People tend to kind of cling on to the big time names of their employers.
But everybody can't work at a place like that. You all have to have different starts.
And maybe not everyone should work for places like that.
Right.
But I think whenever you're a student and you're really impressionable and you think that's the only way to do things, that's when it becomes kind of, I don't know, misleading, I would say. Because I remember even during those 2 years of not being able to find a job and going to happy hours, I would overhear conversations of like, oh, where do you work? And, the person would either answer extremely confidently, like, oh, I work at, such and such. And everyone around would be like, oh, wow, like he must be really good. Versus someone who maybe works in-house at a non-design related company. And then they would kind of sheepishly say like where they work. And everyone's like, oh, that's cool. And you can see that there was like a little bit of insecurity there.
The pride wasn't there. So it was like, but you are working in design. There should be just as much pride because you really have no idea. I mean, it could be a better job working at a corporation than working at an agency. Your hours might be better. The pay might be better. There's sometimes more creative freedom, sometimes not. But it's a lot of times it can be, no matter where you work, it's always just it's a stone. It's a place you're stepping because you have to learn something and that job has to teach you something.
Absolutely. And I think when it comes to being a creative, and a lot of the time students are kind of taught like, oh, you need to, again, go work for someone and learn as much as you can. Well, there's a lot of other avenues that teach, the same lessons, if not bigger lessons. Working for yourself, man, the things that you learn, you'll just never, be exposed to when working for, an employer or being part of the team.
So Doc has a question or a statement, but I think it's a question. Do you think that some of that maybe the reflecting the value of the company is how the company makes you feel? So maybe it's an in-house person or do you really feel like they like their job? They're just they think as a designer compared to the designer who works in an agency, it's not as sexy of a job? Two questions, I guess. Sorry.
Wait, so can you repeat those questions again?
All right. So do you think that an in-house person maybe just doesn't think it's as sexy to work in-house as it is to work at an agency?
Yeah, I think that happens a lot of the times.
Right. I think so too. So then I think what Doc says, maybe some of the in-house people, or, they're doing something else. The reason they don't have that confidence or the value is because they're maybe the company doesn't value them, and so they don't feel valued from that company. So then that value is kind of reflected back on them, because I don't know. So yeah. Doc says they don't feel valued by the company. I was trying to make it make sense.
I think it's, and this is just in my opinion, there might be other factors, but I think the two main sources of someone being discouraged working in in-houses is, one, from what they're exposed to about our industry, right? We're really always celebrating and kind of, almost worshiping like those who are independent and work for themselves and are doing this extremely creative work. That's always what articles are written about. So there's kind of like that influence, as well as, actually what happens at the workplace. Maybe their managers or, the higher ups kind of don't understand their position, and therefore don't value it as much. Maybe there's some disconnect with them explaining their ideas creatively and like how it can actually help the business.
Right.
I really think, I think it's both of those. Like those are kind of like the two sources of why someone working in-house would feel discouraged. Luckily, I think things are changing, and I know actually here in Cleveland, AIGA does an in-house conference where they bring in people that work in-house and that are kind of just as well known as the people that work independently. And I think it's great to kind of start having these conversations that that you can be a designer working in-house and your work can be just as sexy.
Right. Well, and I also think Amy's talking about it, Doc's talking about it, David's talking about it, Hansel's talking about it, and Mara said something beautiful. She said, perhaps the key to all design is always to remember that humans need to be kind to other humans. But I think, and I totally agree with that, but I think exactly what you were saying, Jordan, it's really about, if you're a designer that only does design, then there is a gap of what can you offer to the company. You're just solving for clients. What if you're solving and you think of it as a business? Hey, we could offer this. Why don't we try to offer this? Or why don't we? And you can't maybe always be pushing out because you just can't come up with a ton of different ideas all the time. But maybe if there's something and there's trust there, then they can see that you are able to help their business grow, just like we do with our clients. Maybe that's another way. It's kind of learning a little bit more business savvy and business sense, and then bringing that to the design table.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. Because like employers or working in-house, right? The exchange is that you provide them with, the value of like that position and helping grow their business or help them meet their goals. And in return, they provide you with, security.
Right. And that's what huge. That's what a retainer huge. Client does for you as well, right? Because you become this partnership. The better they do, the better you do as a freelancer.
Absolutely.
So Megan has a question. You'll get to meet Megan. She's our AIGA president here in Mobile. She said, what are some of the biggest lessons you've learned from working for yourself? Because you kind of alluded to it. Like, hey, there's some things that you're not going to learn unless you're the boss.
Yeah. The biggest lessons I've learned for myself. Number one, relationships. So we always tell people like, oh yeah, you have to network. Don't network. Don't don't network at all. Go out there and make connections. Go out there and make genuine relationships. Because the moment that you start going out there with the intention of networking and the intention of, oh, I need to do this so I can get ahead, people will smell it a mile away, and they won't want to. They won't want to work with you. They will
Right.
not want to work with you. You know. Um,
But how do you do that? Because you have a really good way of doing this, Jordan.
mhm.
So it's about being friends. It's not just about calling them when you need something, all right? And them calling you only when it's about having a consistent relationship. Maybe it's that you reach out to them once a month, or maybe you know when their big thing is and you reach out to them in August, or whenever it is they have a big thing coming in October. So it's really about knowing who they are as a company. And right, so what are some of the things you've done to build those kind of relationships, because they're longer term?
I would say I'm genuinely interested in what's going on in those people's lives. You
Mm-hmm.
know, like the people that I work with are the people that I want to get coffee with. You know, I
Mm.
want to sit down and talk about everything with them. You know, what they're excited about in their business, what they're excited about in their hobbies, in their day-to-day life. You know, did they see that one movie? You know, really just get to know them as another human being.
Mm. And you want to see them succeed, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, be invested in their success, you know, just for that reason alone.
Mm.
And it comes back, you know, they'll be invested in your success.
I love that.
Yeah, so relationships are absolutely huge. Um, I don't know if there's time to cover any other.
We have to cover the automatic drawings, because I've just been in this season of doing so many um, uh, illustration exercises. This is an exercise that you did to loosen up. Can you, and I had never heard of this, Jordan, before you. So can you kind of tell them what an automatic drawing is, show it to them, and then show how you have used that in multiple client projects, and it's one of your styles?
Sure, absolutely. So first I'll explain it. So automatic drawing essentially is doodling. Like honestly, it's drawing from your subconscious. It's letting your hand make these split-second visual decisions. You're not really trying to pick something. You're not trying to render something. It's non-objective, and it's very freeing. The focus is really on the mark making and just kind of, you know, letting it come out. It's very therapeutic.
There's not really a goal in mind, right? You're just doing it. You're not
Yeah,
trying to draw something. Show them the first one, if you don't
sure,
mind.
absolutely. So let's see. So the one of the very first automatic drawings I've ever done was this one right here. And you can see like there's a lot of scribbles, and you know, sometimes I go back in and make things a little bit bolder. But yeah, there's really nothing that I'm drawing per se. It's just kind of letting my hand go. Over time, my automatic drawing started to become a little bit tighter, and kind of started diving into this realm of being half conscious and half subconscious. Examples of this are like this piece right here, this one right here, as well as this one. So when I started getting into this kind of style of automatic drawing, and it's kind of debatable if it's truly automatic, because sometimes I end up making a little bit more conscious decisions. But again, I'm not really illustrating something. Like I'm not depicting something. But you can see that there is kind of like a balance, and there are lines that are echoing others.
Mm-hmm.
And that kind of ends up being this sense of melody and harmony throughout the piece, especially with like shapes versus lines versus, you know, things that are linear, things that are, more circular or kind of have organic curves.
Mm-hmm.
So that transitioned into some client work, like this piece. So Ingenuity Fest is an art and like technology event here in Cleveland. Happens every year.
Zoom
It's
in.
it's pretty popular. Sure. Let's see.
Yeah. Okay.
So this is where I kind of start combining like that technique of drawing from the subconscious, or kind of like drawing a little bit more freely, and combining it with something that's a little bit more recognizable, like this hand.
And something that had a prompt, right? So you were kind of like mind mapping in a way all the things that go into maybe metamorphosis, right? Because there's a lot of elements, this growth or fire or wood, and then there's the robot hand and the butterfly and all these things. So Karina has a question, and Jeremy loves this. He says this is insanely detailed, and Doc says this is gorgeous. Okay, so Karina has a question. How did it end up
Sure.
translating to client work? Did they see it on social media or somewhere, or did you pitch using that style? Because you've actually used this in a couple of design pieces.
Yeah. So really how this kind of transitioned into client work was first that it started showcasing or coming up in my own personal artwork. So here's like some shots of like a mural that I did that utilizes this style.
Creative South shirt too.
Yeah. And then I started again featuring this style in like art pieces. So this series is called 5, and each piece is based off of one of the Chinese elements. So this one right here is metal. You can see in the background, this is water. Here's kind of like all three. So fire, water, and then wood. And it was actually this series that led to a lot of client work. So they see it, actually out in the world. I had some of those clients actually come to the opening, and then that led to, like the Ingenuity Fest poster.
What about the t-shirt? Because it kind of has some of those same elements. The black, yeah, that one.
So this illustration actually is also part of another art series that I did called Harmony and Hoopla. And this was kind of just more personally for me. I wanted to start utilizing the automatic drawing style into subjects that I really enjoy, like robot heads and, things like that. So I also use this style personally for me. And just to be fully transparent, I'm actually nervous about this style because, one, I'm concerned that I'll be pigeonholed by it. And two, I'm also kind of concerned about, if I do this style for someone and then I do it again for someone else, if it kind of dilutes the value of something kind of uniquely visual. So I'm trying to always push it, especially getting into the 5 series where I'm thinking about, the quality of the line work. Like Fires is going to be a little bit more jagged and energetic, where, the water is kind of more rounded and flowing.
So
versus
Brian, oh yeah,
go ahead.
No, versus metal.
Oh, versus metal, which is going to be, definitely more angular and kind of playing with straight edges.
So Brian had a question. Is that drawn directly in Illustrator, or what's your process?
So usually I start off with a sketch.
On paper.
On paper. But that's actually now has switched to the iPad Pro.
Because you just got one recently.
Because I just got one. And actually, let's see, I think it's down here. Yeah. The Monster Drawing Rally piece was done a lot on the iPad. But yeah, before I would draw all of my images, or all of the illustrations first on paper as a sketch, and then I would go back into Illustrator and, really clean up the line work. And I'm kind of obsessive about it. And sometimes it ends up being a little bit different from the original sketch.
They're doing stuff in there. It's making a lot of noise.
Oh, that's no
All right.
problem.
So talk about the ice cream, and then maybe next time we'll just have to have you back so that you can talk about the t-shirt. Because you had a show that was, maybe you have enough time to really quickly tell us about that. But talk about, if you don't mind, talk about how you, because I think this was another pivot, how you made a partnership with a ice cream place. Can you talk about that? Tell that story.
Yeah, sure. So, okay, I'm going to try and do this very concisely. So I met the guys over at Jack Prince at WMC Fest 6. And from that led to a collaboration or a partnership where I illustrated this ice cream guy, and they actually used it for stickers to kind of like show off their sticker products. And in return, I got 200 of them for my personal use. So instead of using them like selling them or handing them out for free, I decided to approach a local ice cream shop and do kind of like this like free sticker day event. So this is kind of like what we had. So Mason's Creamery, they're like a little local shop. They do their ice cream is really good, but they were absolutely interested in doing this event. One, because it was low impact. They seriously didn't have to do anything, too much, maybe share a lot of this stuff through social media. And two, it didn't cost them anything. And it didn't even cost me anything because the stickers were already provided through the exchange that I had with Jack Prince. So again, it's this idea of like, okay, I have like this illustration. Okay, now I have like something physical from it. And now I can use that to promote not only my business, but someone else's business. And I'm actually in talks with them about doing like another joint promotion.
Awesome. And I love that because it is that partnership. It is, it started something and maybe now plays out in a new way that, or even some of the people that came and got the sticker, now they're able to kind of see what you were able to do. And I don't know if you tracked that or if you could track that or whatever, but if you got any new clients off of that, but at least you spread the love. And it cost Jack Prince the most, right? It cost you time, but for them, they had actually produced it. So it was a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right, Jordan, we are out of time. But I'm so glad you got to share a bunch of ways that you pivoted. And so today is our first live drawing for the Love on Designers. So I had told you that we were going to do this today, and we're going to do one more next week. We actually get 2 drawings this week. One from doing our post on Instagram, so liking something. I did these designers on a piece of bread. Kim did these great like orange and orange, lemon, lime kind of energized thing. And so please go like it, tag 2 friends, and make sure you like Kim Panella and Design Recharge, and then you're entered. But so this is the live. So I am going to get you to tell me, oh, we had a question. I want you to tell me a number between 1 and 22, and then okay. I'm going to pick from that.
Okay, let's go with 16.
Okay, 16. All right, so hang on just a second. Let's see. All right, so Mara, you are our winner. So Mara, I just need your no, you're not getting your box till the end of the month, but I am excited that I get to, I know Mara, so I'm glad I get to, yay, share it. So there's tons of awesomeness. You're going to get a bunch of pins that both Kim and I like. You're going to get some cards that Kim and I have designed, and some other like tools in there, and some stickers. So there's some new stickers, some Love on Designer stickers. So anyway, Mara, I'm glad that you are our first winner. And if you would make sure you email me, I know you have my email address, but if you could email me your address so that I can put you in. So thank you. Number 16 was Mara. So guys, you can still win this week if you just tag 2 friends and like both Kim Panella and Design Recharge on Instagram. All right. So for the rest of everybody, Jordan, you're going to be coming to Mobile. And
Yes.
what else? What in the next near future, while I share your places for people to connect with you, where can people find you?
So you can view my work at my website, wongface.com. I have an online store as well where I sell t-shirts that I've designed, and I'm working on kind of growing that, and that's wongface.com/shop.
And all these are coming in the chat too, so they'll be in the below on YouTube and on SoundCloud, as well as on the website, my website, Recharging You. Okay, and then the blog, you have a blog?
Yep, so I have a blog, and I actually kind of update that probably as much as like my Instagram, and more so than my website, unfortunately. So yeah, my blog's wongface.tumblr.com, and then I'm on Instagram at wongface.
Awesome. So Jordan, thank you. And I can't wait to see you. You're coming here to Mobile if you're in the Mobile area and you want to participate in the Flourish conference, that you can get your tickets, and maybe Megan can put I think it's AIGA Mobile or mobile.aiga.org. Yep, mobile.aiga.org. And then you can also, so people will drive in from like 6 hours away, Jordan. So I know you'll have a slew of people. So I'm really excited to have you. And we're going to have some barbecue for you. I know that was one of your requirements. And then will you be going to Creative South this year?
I'm still checking my schedule on that, actually.
Okay. But you'll be going to WMC Fest in August for sure.
Yes, absolutely.
Because it's in your backyard.
Yeah, seriously.
All right. Well, guys, next week, remember, it is the Love on Designers Fest, I guess, because we'll have everybody who wants to be on, and we'll kind of get to know each other a little bit. So if you don't want to be on camera, then that's totally fine. You just don't have to ask to be on camera. But I'm absolutely happy to kind of share it and join. We do something similar. We've done something similar before. So I'm excited to have everybody kind of be able to see and put a face with a name. So it's not just Doc. Maybe Doc will come live, and you can maybe go to a little part of your office and hopefully won't be really creepy or anything, or you're like, no, Jason Frost Holmes in a cubicle with a whole bunch of other people. So it might be a little bit hard for him, but maybe. So anyway, hopefully everybody will join us next week. And even if not, you can just see who people are, and it might just be me and Kim, or it might just be me. But hopefully somebody will join on camera. And if you want to get in touch with me, you can always email me at diane@rechargingyou.com. What helps the show the most is just for you to share it. So if you have a friend who you think could benefit from it, and I'm going to start doing some new things. My new friend Chris Doe is really giving me some pointers and some ideas. So I'm going to start doing some more things. I did talk about how to make a sticker this week, a cheap way, doing a dummy or something. So there will be another video coming this week, and it's more about illustration. So it's just kind of taking you through my journey. So I hope that you guys will continue. Let me know how you like it. If there's any comments, things that you want to change, or somebody who you want to see live, I'd love to know. So get in touch with me, and you can always follow me on Instagram or Twitter at Design Recharge. So anyway, and Mara, you're awesome because you won. You're the winner. I can't wait to share these awesome goodies with you. Some of them are coming in this week. So other things that we got printed. So anyway, I appreciate all the love and encouragement on my little green people, and Jordan, I appreciate you always encouraging me. Also, it really means a lot. And that I do really feel like you care and you're invested in my growth as a illustrator. So thank you for being a good friend.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you.
All right, guys, I'm going to sign out and we will see you next week.